lot of people criticizing Ohio State for not wanting to be there. I think there can be a difference between having an assignment and doing your best, really trying hard and giving it your best and feeling like you're giving maximum effort versus like being on a mission, being obsessed, being just whether you're inspired by fear or by hatred or disgust or frustration and just running everywhere like your hair's on fire and just refusing to be denied, being relentless, Kevin. And that just seemed to be the difference. I didn't question Ohio State's effort necessarily. I'm sure in spots it could have been better. I'm sure it could have been better. But I just think Michigan, maybe there's a fragile psychological switch between being supremely confident and then once that gets challenged and you see that maybe you're vulnerable, that gets flipped quickly versus Michigan knowing that they were good. And once we talked about it last week, and I'm sure you guys talked about it a million times amongst yourselves, if Michigan got some positive things early, that spurring on their confidence.
Well, I think Ohio State really hadn't taken a punch this year. And I know that Ohio State, you can go back to September 11th, week 2, they lose to Oregon. So obviously they tasted defeat, but I don't know, maybe you look at that as a case of, oh, well, they got a lucky shot in, we weren't ready, whatever. We fixed some of these issues. We're no longer a single high defense. We're doing this, that, and the other. And then Michigan throws a punch. And it's like, ow, you sons of guns. What the hell was that? And they just didn't know how to respond at that point. And, Michigan finally rededicated itself to the rivalry, and maybe that there was some belief, and I don't think anybody's going to openly admit it, that Ohio State had grown kind of complacent in the fact that, well, we always beat Michigan. So what's there to get worried about? We got to sit there and be keeping an eye on Wisconsin and Iowa and Georgia and everything else. And, did Ohio State, there were a lot of things that we've seen Ohio State do with great success that we didn't see in this game. Was the game plan too narrow? Was the thought that maybe we're just going to come out here, roll it out there, and be able to win the game, that we don't need to have this? And it's not like you can take something from 6 playbooks ago and say, well, we're going to just throw this out there. If you don't practice it during the week, if it's not installed, it's not something easy to go to. So, I think that this goes to all levels. This is, I think that some of the preparation, I think some of the game plan, I think some of the execution. It was just a really bad day for Ohio State on all fronts. And, this is a Michigan team that played a hell of a lot more inspired than what I saw against Rutgers 7 weeks ago. Hell, Rutgers should have beat them. And, Rutgers stymied that rushing offense, and Ohio State couldn't do anything with it.
What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, all valid points. I think, you look at, again, there's no one size fits all answer in a game that, let's see, I just got the stats here. Total plays, 79 for Ohio State, 61 for Michigan. So there were 140 plays in this game, which is probably about right. Usually you run about 70 plays on each side, 60 to 70, whatever it is. And so there were a lot of variables and a lot of things that happened depending on down and distance and the score and different things and different looks and different things. But just in a nutshell, Michigan came out and they punched Ohio State in the mouth, and Ohio State didn't respond. And so Michigan said, okay, we don't have to take a step back after punching them in the mouth. We can continue stepping forward and punching them in the mouth again and again and again and again. And when Ohio State never really had the answer, the crowd got into the game. It was extremely loud there at times, which it usually is not all that loud at the University of Michigan. People talked about it as being one of the louder games they'd ever attended there. And I made this point on another show that I did. In the modern era, there's a couple games that stand out for Ohio State. And one of them is beating Miami for the national championship at 2003. And another one is beating Alabama in 2015 in the playoff after the 2014 season, because they'd never beaten an SEC team, I don't believe, in a bowl game, unless you count Arkansas, which was kind of stricken from the records anyway. But for whatever, a real SEC team, let's put it that way, to keep everybody south of the Mason-Dixon line happy, because they still don't claim Arkansas as one of their own. But at any rate, they'd never beaten Alabama before. So everybody thought Alabama was going to win the game, and Ohio State struck that blow for Northern supremacy and went on and won the national championship almost as an anticlimax after that. Well, this was Michigan's Alabama game. This was Michigan's Miami game. This is the biggest win they've had in 20 years, and it gets all this off Harbaugh's back. And you just get this sense that, maybe there's a sense of relief, a sense of accomplishment for Michigan, and it should be, because Ohio State was the number 2 team in the country and had deserved, it appeared, to be in that spot. So, but didn't play like it, obviously, on that day. I thought C.J. Stroud, given everything that went against him, being put behind and down in distance all day long by his left tackle, his right tackle, and his left tackle, between holding penalties, false starts, and giving up sacks, which I didn't feel any of those were really his fault. There was maybe one coverage sack out of the 4. So I just feel like he stood on his head, and he kept Ohio State in that game. I think his yardage total is the second most ever by an Ohio State quarterback against Michigan, too shy of what Dwayne Haskins did in would have been 2017, I guess. So to my way of thinking, this game was lost in the trenches. Front 7 on defense just didn't play up anywhere close to their capabilities. And, what can you do? Some days, you get the bear, and someday the bear gets you. And they got trampled by the bear this time around. And next time around, it'll be different. I have a feeling that they've already sown the seeds for Ohio State to come back and whip their ass next year in Columbus with some of the things they've done and said here in the few short minutes after that win. They should have just taken it, signed their scorecard, and moved on to the next hole. They chose not to do that. So they've kind of made their bed, but we'll see if Ohio State in 2022 can make them pay for that.
I'm talking about too much college football across the nation to pick up on some of these things. So I'm not in tune with what we're talking about. So what have we heard out of Michigan?
Well, Gaddis came out and said Ohio State was soft, which they were, but that's not something that you, as one of the opposing coaches who has to play them again in 363 days, would ever come out and say publicly. The comment from Jim Harbaugh that some people, are born on third base and believe they hit a triple. Well, who in God's name did anybody think he was referring to? He was referring to his little lover's quarrel with Ryan Day, where allegedly last year on a Big Ten coaches conference call, he brought up, we got some teams out here practicing with pads and blah, 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 and doing this during the COVID hiatus, pointing at a picture of Al Washington, his former employee, out on a field with a tackling dummy, which he shouldn't have had apparently. And Ryan Day told him, shut your mouth, take care of your own business, whatever. And then behind the scenes alleging he was going to, run it up on Michigan. They don't seem to like each other. So, whatever, that's fine. You're 1-5. Congratulations. And, we'll see if you ever even up that record. My thought is you probably never will.